There's a lot of debate on whether you can really get stereo from an Atmos mix. For me, there's no debate because I've been doing it for a while and I've had people happy with the results. But, I know there's some skeptics out there. I have some downtime, so I thought I would do a little bit of an experiment for you today. Earlier this year, I had the privilege to attend an Atmos mixing masterclass with Bob Clearmountain. If you followed me at all for a while or have just known me, you know that Bob has been a huge influence on my work and approach to doing things. And today, I thought I would do a little bit of mixing, and I'm actually going to take the approach that Bob uses to mix stereo and Atmos at the same time. Now, it's going to be a little different for us today because Bob is working on an SSL. He's actually been mixing this way for a long time, over 2 decades, I believe, because originally he used this method when he was mixing surround and stereo at the same time. It's just always the way he's worked for, 20 something years now. And he adapted it to be able to do Atmos. So he's mixing stereo and Atmos at the same time. I don't have a big hunk of metal, as he likes to say. I am working all in the box, but I'm going to show you how to set that same kind of style and approach up in the box. Today I'll work in Pro Tools, but you should be able to do this in just about any DAW. So let's get started. All right, I have a blank Pro Tools session. I killed busing. There's some Atmos stuff in here, and I'm going to bring some stuff in from my template in a little bit too, which will make a little bit of sense. In fact, just to start, let me get some of that in here. I need all of my internal renderer routing kind of stuff. So let's go grab that. It's my Atmos music template. Yes, I'm on version 14. I just want my internal renderer. I need the 5.1. We'll grab that and we'll grab the binaural. And I'm going to bring those in. This just has some routing in here that I'm going to need, like the binaural. So we'll put that'll end up at the bottom of the session. So just to get started. Now there are a couple of things I'm going to need. I'm going to need a stereo mix bus. So we'll do a stereo aux, call it mix bus. This is going to go out to my monitors so that I can listen. And then I need my Atmos mix bus. So for that, since we're doing this Bob style, I'm going to use a track preset from Avid. If I can find them, go down here, Dolby Atmos, 714. Bob's mixing in 714. And based on what I heard of a bunch of mixes that he played for us at that workshop, I'm not sure you need much more. I mean, I personally work in 916 because I like putting stuff into the wide positions at times. But man, the 714 mixes he played for us, they were really good. So anyways, we'll do this bus. All right, we'll call it Mix 714. Or, we'll call it Atmos. Okay. Getting there. Now I need one more thing, and this will all start to make sense in a minute. And I'm going to set this up. This is actually going to be a master fader for me. And I'm going to call this, what do I want to call this? We'll call it Mix Comp Key. All right. Let's get into the I/O and create these buses. So I need a stereo mix bus. And I need a mono mix comp key. All right, so this is gonna be mix comp key. Input for this is gonna be the mix bus. What have we done? We've got our stereo mix bus. We'll just call that mix bus. Pretty standard. Then we've got our 714 mix bus. I'm gonna call this mix Atmos. And then we've got this mix comp key. Setting this up kind of like Bob, I need a bus compressor because that's really all he's got on his mix bus. And it's really all I normally put on my mix bus. In this case, we want something SSL style. So I'm going to use the Townhouse because that's what I use anyways. And we're going to do the Bob Clearmountain preset I've got. He typically sets his settings for kind of a more rock track. It's 4:1 ratio, 1 millisecond attack, 300 millisecond release. Now I'm going to put the same thing onto the Atmos mix bus. All right, same bus compressor on both of these. Now I need to make sure that both of these bus compressors are always going to work the same. So I need to set up a sidechain input. And for that, I'm going to go into bus and I'm going to use that mix comp key and I'm going to turn the key in on. Now I'm going to go to the Atmos mix bus compressor, set that to the mix comp key for the sidechain and put the key in. Now we're ready to go. So now you're wondering, why did I create that master fader? Because in some ways we don't really need it. I like having that whenever I'm using this kind of sidechain approach because I can adjust this master fader here for the sidechain level, and that is basically the equivalent of adjusting the threshold inside this compressor. Why don't I just do it in the threshold? Because if I adjust it in this compressor on the stereo mix bus, it's not going to adjust in the Atmos one. So this just is going to simplify things if I need to adjust that threshold. All right, so a few more things I want to set up. I'm going to set up some objects because when Bob is mixing in Atmos, he really only has a few sends for objects. I can't remember the exact number, maybe 4 or so. So I'm going to just we'll set up 2 stereo, and I'm going to do these as AUXes, and it'll make sense. So we'll set up 2 stereo objects, and then I'll set up 2 mono objects. Again, let's call this object. I know this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense just yet, but trust me, we're getting there. So we'll create these objects 1 and 2. So now I'm going to route these to, let's see, 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 are in use. So we want these to be 15, 16, and we're going to set those to objects. We'll call these 19 and 20 and turn those on. All right, these need inputs now. So we'll go up in the setup. We'll go, I need 2 stereo and I need 2 mono. Just create those. Okay. We'll call these, let's see, bus 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then these are going to be those other mono buses, 5 and 6. So we'll call this object 15, 16, object 17, 18, object 19, object 20. Oops. Okay. That should do it for setting this up to get started. Let's call this object 15, 16, object 17, 18, object 19. Okay, that should just about do it. I'm going to reorder some things and recolor some things and get this all a little more organized for me so that it makes some sense. Okay, I set up a few more things in here just to kind of get this so it'll be easier and faster to work. Mainly, I just set up some effects stuff. And the other thing I did was I sort of set up kind of a basic channel. And I did this because this is just going to make assigning things easier for me because I'll be able to copy the sends from SoundFlow and then I'm going to put this on every channel. So I'm kind of moving towards just doing this as kind of a console style approach. So I've set things up a little bit along the lines of how I know Bob does some of this stuff. So I set up a couple of delays. I set up a split harmonizer, which if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. And then I just set up like 3 different reverbs. So kind of something that's like a plate, something that's a little longer, and then something that'll be kind of really long. And then I also have just kind of an ambience, and I also have a quad sort of ambience that I'll put up top. Now, I had to do things a little different here in terms of routing, because one of the things you can start to see, every channel, the last 2 sends, one of them is this mix comp key, which is going to be our bus compressor key. And then the other one is a send to the Atmos mix. So the way Bob does everything is he's using his bus assignments to assign things for Atmos. So I've kind of replicated that a little bit just by putting this bus send on here. Bob uses the small fader on his SSL to tweak the balance for the Atmos mix, and I'll be able to do that just by adjusting the send there. So that's how all of this is set up. I haven't tweaked all the panning yet in here for the Atmos stuff, and there might be some other things I want to do, but to get started, I think this is going to put me in a good place. There's a few more things I'm going to tweak, and then I'm going to import all of the audio and get that set up so that I can start mixing. One thing I should mention that I did in here in the IO setup, I went in and with our Mix Atmos bus, I added some subpaths for that. I added a top one, which is going to be a quad, and 5-1 subpath, and I just did that to make it a little easier to route some of the effects that I'm going to use that are more surround and kind of Atmos oriented. So let's go back in. Okay, I got my audio tracks imported now. Now I need to start doing some routing and setting these up a little bit. So I'm going to just select them all, and I'm going to route them all to my mix bus to start. So there's the stereo mix bus. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to this channel, and that's kind of my template for routing. And I'm going to copy the track data with SoundFlow. There we go. Now I am just going to select all of those audio tracks, and I'm going to hit paste sends and let SoundFlow do its thing. Now I'm just going to put a channel strip on here. I like the SSL, the Waves EV2 SSL. So I'm just going to put that on every track. I am just about ready. I'm going to do a little more organization stuff in here, get things sorted into folders, because it's going to make it a little easier for me to navigate with my control surface and bounce around. And then I am going to just start mixing, and I'm going to get a mix going in stereo. All right, I've got the stereo mix kind of roughed in, so let me play a little bit of this for you. I'd probably massage it a little bit more, but you know, for these purposes, this is going to be fine. So now I'm going to flip over to Atmos. I'm going to flip you guys over to the binaural. Let me get that routed for you. So now I'm going to start taking care of all the Atmos panning. And this is where this approach, at least in Pro Tools, I'm not crazy about this, because I'm going to have to do a lot of panner manipulation for that Atmos bus. And remember, we've got this Mix Atmos bus. This is our Atmos mix. I have everything set to default to the follow main panner. And right away, a lot of this stuff is very different from the way it usually comes up if you're just working with Atmos as a default, with your main bus, I guess, being sent to either surround or Atmos, any kind of multi-channel beyond stereo, I should say. This panner is very different. So I'm going to turn off follow main pan, and then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to start resetting some stuff because this is not the way it should be. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to do this at, we'll do 91. Let's see. Okay, snare drum. This can be the same, so we'll just copy it. Copy that down. All right. Toms. All right, so again, turn off follow main pan, put it all the way at the front. That's all good. Tom 1, turn off follow main pan, and want it all the way in the front. Overhead ride, again, that up there. I mean, I suppose I could write a sound flow script that would do all of this stuff for me if this was the approach I was going to use. But since I'm not going to use it, I'm not really worried about it too much. All right, so now with this perk stem, though, I'm going to... I want to let me put it in the height. Let's try this again. Mix Atmos. Very weird. Well, let's put it in the height. Not sure what's going on. The height panner doesn't seem to work here at the moment, but that's okay. All right, bass. Again, front, center. I want that at 91. Okay. Bass working. All right. Acoustic guitar. Let's go there. Reset those. Not quite sure why there's no height control on this. I'm really just getting a 7.1, but that's okay. All right, guitars. I am going to leave those in the sides where they're at. So where are we at so far with this stuff? Let's mute the keys a minute. Piano. Let's do that. Follow main pan. I'm going to put it in the rear. Unmute that. Pad, I'm going to put this up top. Put it in the back, up top. Let's see, what's this guy doing? That one I'm going to put up top as well, but I'll put it in the front. And then this guy... Not sure about this one yet. Let's see, what do we got? So I've got some stuff spread around a little bit, and it's kind of working in here, but if I'm being honest, it doesn't feel quite as good as when I start out in Atmos and do a lot of the same kind of panning and then go back and listen to stereo. So let me give you a listen. I was flipping back and forth a little bit between the Atmos and the stereo, but you guys can't hear that. So what I'll do is I'm going to bounce back and forth between the binaural and just the stereo for you. So we'll start with binaural. So hopefully you're hearing a difference in that going between the binaural and just the original stereo. If I was going to keep working on this mix, I would probably do a little bit of tweaking between the two of them, going back and forth and adjusting levels. I mean, that's the nice thing about this approach is I've got this separate fader here where I can adjust that, and working with my S1, I could actually set it up so that I flip that fader value right onto the fader. So I could do all of my trims and any adjustments I want to do for the Atmos mix. I could do it all right on the faders, which would make things a lot faster. But in general, this approach inside of Pro Tools, it does feel a little bit slower to me than what I've been doing, probably because I've been doing it a different way, but also just because I feel like I'm going to have to pop open a lot more of these panning windows to make this happen. But, you know, if you're new to Atmos, you're getting into it, you're used to a stereo workflow, and you're trying to move that into Atmos, this is a way that might make a little bit of sense for you, might help you wrap your head around some of that, and maybe help you transition over to that. I'd love to know, though, you know, how are you managing stereo to Atmos or Atmos to stereo? Please leave a comment below. If you've got other questions about working in Atmos and mixing in Atmos, again, throw a comment below. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.